I've engaged you, haven't I? So, what are we going to be covering today? Basically, weather modification. Is it real? Do we have a giant hurricane gun? Does it work? Are chemtrails real? The answer to most of those is kind of. So, let's get into specifically what humans can and cannot do when it comes to weather modification, because the answer might not be what you think. Let's start with a quote from President Lyndon B. Johnson speaking to Congress in 1962. "He who controls the weather will control the world." That's pretty ominous, actually. Thanks, LBJ. I mean, well, look how he got the job. But what exactly was he talking about with that quote? Well, by 1962, the US government had already been experimenting with weather modification for more than 2 decades. And unlike a lot of other projects from that era, we actually have receipts for this one. This is patent US 3429507A, filed in 1966 by the US Navy. It describes a method of cloud particle ionization to influence the formation of precipitation. In other words, it makes clouds rain. Like, look at this. This is not some badly photocopied document from a conspiracy website. This is an actual patent that you can look up right now. But before we get into the actual science of how this works, we need to address the elephant in the room. And yes, it does involve spraying things from planes. Cloud seeding is basically exactly what it sounds like. You're literally seeding clouds to try to make them produce rain. Now, the most common method of doing this involves the use of silver iodide, because it has a very, very similar crystalline structure to that of ice. See? Almost identical. Now, here's where I'm going to need to take a brief detour to address something. Yes, cloud seeding involves planes spraying chemical substances into the air. No, those are not the contrails you see behind commercial aircraft. This is what a cloud seeding plane looks like. Notice all the special spray equipment? This is a regular commercial jet. It is just a regular plane. The white trails you see behind commercial aircraft it's literally just water vapor. It is hot engine exhaust meeting cold air. It is the same thing that happens when you breathe out on a cold day. Also, I need to address this picture, which is a pet peeve of mine. See all those tanks full of liquid in the back of the plane? Those are not full of chemtrail juice. Those are full of water. They're full of water because this is a picture of a plane testing weight distribution. That is how they get different weight distributions. If they were spraying it, why would they need a bunch of tiny barrels? They would just use one big tank. Anyways, speaking of chemtrails. Actually, no, this probably isn't a very good way to segue into a sponsor spot. See what I did there? Now on to the back half of this video, which I really think is what a lot of you clicked on here for. Like, yeah, cloud seeding, okay, whatever. That's more or less public knowledge at this point. But what is the deal with HAARP? HAARP. Well, this is a question that's tricky to answer, because it deals with the alleged existence of the sort of program that, were it to exist, would be ultra, mega, super duper classified. So this is largely speculative, and take this with a grain of salt, but there do seem to be some things we know. So, firstly, is HAARP real? Well, there is a cop-out answer, which is, yes, definitively, HAARP, or the High Altitude Auroral Research Program, was a research program at the University of Alaska in the late 90s and early 2000s that has since been shut down. It had nothing to do with the weather. This is the, Wikipedia definition. However, you and I both know damn well that is not what you're asking. HAARP is basically a shorthand term for theorized ionosphere-based weather shenanigans. Now, this is sort of filtered down through the general public boomer Facebook post rabbit hole until it morphed into its current incarnation, which is, we have a magic hurricane gun that we've been using on ourselves for some reason. Like with a lot of conspiracy theories, they're generally about 30% true. And to explain the origin of the potential kind of kernel of truth that people keep running with, we've got to go back to the Soviet Union. See, this right here is the Duga-8. You might have seen pictures of it or heard it referred to by its nickname, the woodpecker. See, this is an example of a massive, massive over-the-horizon radar. The Soviets used this to detect airplane stuff hundreds or even thousands of miles away. This was done by shooting the radar pulse up into the sky and then bouncing the signal back down off of the ionosphere in order to reach places far enough away that they were occluded by the curvature of the Earth. This, much to the chagrin of U.S. ham radio operators, resulted in the radar pulses being audible all the way in the United States. These repetitive bursts of chattering clicks led to it gaining the derisive nickname, the woodpecker. Now, interestingly, this was a big enough issue that there was kind of a cottage industry for a while in building small, electronic boxes that could be tuned to automatically phase cancel the regular repeating pulses, so that you didn't have to keep listening to it endlessly. Now, the underlying principle behind what people are referring to when they say HARP is basically, hey, what if we did the radio wave thing, but turned it up super loud so that when it hits the ionosphere, it makes the ionosphere go boing, and then it probably does some, weird temperature stuff to the air. Now, this is not an exact quote, but yes, in an insanely rudimentary and reductive sense, that's more or less the idea. Now, the actual degree to which this exists in the real world, rather than just theoretically, is kind of anyone's guess. And anyone who actually knew anything couldn't say anything about it, so anyone with any supposed specifics is sort of like a case of the blind leading the stupid, or however that saying goes. Regardless, though, I don't think it's in active use anywhere close to what some people are claiming, just primarily due to the fact that, everyone would know. Keep in mind that the Duga put out enough interference to be a constant nuisance halfway across the globe. Or disk. Or cube. It's a cube, I've seen the corners. And that was just running at regular radar detection levels of power. Now, in order to, boing the ionosphere, it would need to be putting out several magnitudes more power, and, honestly, I feel like it would probably microwave you, in effect, if you were anywhere near the transmitter. So, anyways, to sum it up, weather modification. Real, but kind of underwhelming. Anyone who is adamant that it can do crazy shit, or that we use it all the time, is either a shameless grifter or has 1190s peasant superstition brain. And anyone who is adamant that it doesn't exist at all is either a federal agent or has 1690s pilgrim witch trial brain.
Call me right, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Call me right on the grease with that fucking sawed off. Call me about to clip it to the bone, bladed 44. Call me right, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Call me right on the creep with that fucking